I'd like to welcome y'all back to another episode of Beyond the Fear podcast, the place where y'all come for motivation, inspiration, uplifting, and the overall positive message. I'm your host, DJ, and today's episode is about how important it is to know yourself. Now, I was having a few different conversations with some friends and coworkers over the past week. Well, last week, I would say. And some of the things that we were talking about, it made me realize how important it is to know yourself. And because some of the things that they're going through, like I have a friend, when when she's bored, she has to be talking to somebody. And sometimes that means that she puts herself in situations that when she's not bored, she don't think about, as far as like she puts herself in situations with men that when she's not bored, she wouldn't be thinking about that man. If her phone wasn't dry, she wouldn't be thinking about nothing that's going, wouldn't be thinking about that particular person. But when she's bored and when her phone is dry, then, now, she's willing to do anything, just talk to anybody, welcome in anybody, spin the block, as they say. And, you know, she just needing attention from, the opposite sex. And we just sit down and we talk all the time. And I just be telling her, like, you gotta work on yourself, you gotta do this. And like I know that she hears me and I know that she understands that, it's true, but it's just something when she's bored or when her phone is dry, it's just something that clicks in her head that tells her, no, I'm gonna go entertain something that I shouldn't. And the crazy thing is that I can relate because before going to therapy and before, like, just me going on my healing journey and dealing with everything that I had to deal with or that I'm dealing with, I was the same way. When I was bored, I'm in people's inboxes, not wanting nothing, just trying to just out of just purely out of boredom. I may not know these people, we may just be friends on Facebook, don't really know each other in real life, but hey, I'm bored right now. Let me go see what's up. Let me go see how you doing. And like I said, didn't want anything, wasn't looking for anything sexual, was not looking for a relationship. It was just boredom and I'm looking for conversation. So I can completely understand where she's coming from. The difference between us is she's going back to situations that she dealt with before. So she's putting herself in situations to, for something to potentially happen. And for me, it was just conversation. Everything was online. Everything was just, or maybe a text message. I may text people that I know I shouldn't have, like that relationship or that friendship, whatever it was, is dead. It's over with. There's nothing there anymore, but I'm bored. So let me just see if I can reignite it for the sake of having a conversation or just for the sake of having a time filler, something to fill my time. And so, that I did that and I did that for years, you know what I'm saying? And it wasn't until, like I said, this time around where I'm single, I have, but I'm going to therapy. So now instead of filling that void with random conversations, I'm filling that void with just figuring myself out. What do I want? What do I need? How can I help myself? And it's helped to fill in those gaps. It's helped to take away that desire, even when I'm bored, to want to open up doors that I know I shouldn't open up, doors that have been closed and they were closed for a reason. So it's helped me to just, you know, now I go to the gym. I'll find something on TV. I found that I enjoy watching, reading webtoons. So I'll do that. I'll do something else to fill my time whenever I feel, because I don't even feel it come in as much as I used to. But when it does, when that boredom does hit me, it's never that thought of let me open the door, let me go open this door that's been closed and been locked. for a reason for months, maybe even years. Let me go open that door again. So I haven't had those urges, but I understand where those urges come from. So I understand how she is. But and the thing that frustrates me with her is, like I said, it ain't just an online thing. She is also putting herself in situations where, she's getting hurt and getting frustrated by it. And it's like, you know, it's kind of hard because, when you try to talk to somebody, you try to tell them, hey, that ain't the right move, or just whatever. You're just trying to talk to them. You also know that they're in a place where they are going to do what they want to do, and they're not really trying to hear all of. They're not trying to hear all of that. They hear you, but they're still going to do what they want to do. So when it kind of happens the way you already know it's going to happen, or you at least kind of have a feeling that's going to happen, it's hard to look at them and be like, well, it ain't hard, but it's like you can look at them and be like, "I told you so." But it's just like you also know that ain't helping them. That ain't helping the situation. That's not making it any better. But yeah, man, that's just one example. But I've had plenty of conversations with friends, like I said, over the past couple of weeks. Well, last week. Well, yeah, past couple of weeks. And it's so important to know yourself, especially like, I've had some friends come tell me like how crazy it is, the dating scene right now, how crazy that is, and how men only want this and how women only want that and stuff like that. And I'm just like, so me being me, the first thing that I ask them when they be telling me all these things, okay, well, what do you want? And then it's just like, they just freeze up. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't know what they want, because they haven't spent that intimate time with themselves. And again, I understand because I can relate. These are not things that are what they're going through is not foreign to me because I went through it for a majority of my life. You know what I'm saying? Like again, before the therapy, before, yeah, really just before the therapy, I was the same way. I'm just out here just wondering, going through life, not really understanding what I'm doing or why I'm doing it or who I'm doing it for, or what I want to do. It's just so many questions. And so, literally every time I ask, well, what do you want? It's like this stop. And then if they do have an answer, it's more like that, what everybody says, the typical things that, everybody says. And again, not saying that that's not what they want, but I know them well enough to know that that's not everything that they want. It's just more so you hear online. So, you want, you want things like protection, provision. You know, one of my homeboys said he wants I think he said he wanted a traditional wife. And I'm like, okay, do you understand what comes with that? And so as we're talking, and he's like, yeah, she can, she's doing this, she's doing that. And I'm like, wait, hold on. So, and so I had to stop and I had to ask him, like, what's your definition of a traditional wife? Because I'll sit here and I'll be honest, the, I don't fully understand it, but from my understanding of what I do know, the limited information that I do know, it's more of like the stay at home, role with the kids, the cooking, cleaning, stuff like that, just pretty much taking care of the home while, the husband goes and works and makes the money and all of this stuff. That's that's about as much knowledge as I have on it, very bare minimum surface level. I can acknowledge that. So his definition was something, it wasn't that, it was more so along the lines of like pretty much just her doing all the stuff that I said a traditional wife should do, plus still going out getting money and all of this stuff. And I'm like, and if that's what you want, and you find somebody who's willing to do that, man, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But my thing with him was, you got to figure out what you truly want, because if you say traditional, what you're talking about may not be traditional in a lot of people's minds, so you need to really figure out what it is that you want. And because in my mind, the way I look at it is, once you do that, you'll stop falling for certain things. Because one thing that I've noticed is that once you start working on your peace, once you start working on your happiness, once you start working on yourself, there are certain things. Well, let me just speak for me. There are certain things. There are certain things that I don't allow around me anymore. There are things that are just no longer acceptable for me. There are certain things that once somebody does that, okay, now that's a big turn off for me. I can't rock with it anymore. So that's why I think that it's so important to start doing the work and then start doing the healing, because you eliminate a lot of things naturally once that happens, because you start to see that I know that I'm doing a certain level of work. I know that I'm getting to a certain level of emotional intelligence. I'm getting to a certain level of mental stability. I'm getting to a certain level of, just calmness and peace and quiet in my life that I truly appreciate. Then you'll start to see people as disruptions to that, to what you got going on. And again, it's not to say that that completely eliminates those people, but it just starts to it makes you start to question and ask yourself certain questions like, do I truly see myself with a person like this, who's disturbing and disrupting things that I have going on? And especially if they're not, especially if that's just who they are, and it's okay that that's who they are. This is not an attack on that person. It's just an understanding of, okay, we clash. Where you are in life right now and where I am in life right now is just a big clash. So I don't know if we can make this work. So it's just certain things that you will start questioning automatically before you even get on date 6, 7, 8. And date one, you start to realize, okay, the way that they move kind of flies in the face of everything that I'm trying to do or the places I'm trying to go. So you start to naturally just eliminate things, because you're starting to learn yourself. You're starting to learn what you like. You're starting to learn what's acceptable for you. You start to learn things that are deal breakers or just unacceptable route, just places you are not willing to go anymore, because you're knowing yourself. You're taking the time with yourself to understand where you're trying to go. So once you have that roadmap of where you're trying to go, because again, man, I know everything about yourself, but you know enough to know, okay, this is my set plan. This is where I see myself. This is what I see going on. And of course, we're human. So, you got to give enough space and enough grace for human error. But you have to know what it is that you want. And that's very important, because that on the flip side of that, you also now know what you don't want. You also know now what's not desirable. You know what you don't want in a partner. And I think that that's just as important, because once you start to see those things manifest themselves in somebody, you can instantly see it and you can instantly say, okay, that's not for me. I know for a fact that that's not something that I want. I know for a fact that that's not something that I'm looking for, or I already tried that and I know that that does not work for me. And that's just as important. And it's so, but that also depends on you, because I know a lot of people who date the same person with the same personality. You know what I'm saying? They may hide it a little better than the last person, but you're dating the same person over and over and over again. And you're doing it because, I'm assuming that it's a sense of comfort, of understanding, okay, I know this person, I know this type of person, I know what they bring. And so you find comfort in, as they say, dancing with the devil that you know. So you know the downside of people like this, who think like the way you are. ex thinks or whatever, moves the way your ex moves. But the problem with that is you also know what the ceiling is. And if the ceiling wasn't high enough for that last relationship, then you should know that the ceiling isn't going to be high enough for this relationship if you're dating the exact same person who has the exact same, mentality. He or she may do something different here and there. And so that may raise the ceiling a little or may even lower the ceiling a little. But it's still within that range of what your past relationship or past relationships, depending on if you've been dating the same type of person, you know where that ceiling is. And you have to start now asking yourself, okay, what are the things that you don't like? What are the things that you're not going to deal with? What are the things that you're willing to deal with? You know what I'm saying? What are you actually looking for? You know what I'm saying? So now you can start to see, okay, this person is exhibiting traits that I'm just not going to deal with. Okay, cool. I can now get this person, I can stop dealing with this person. But again, that all goes back to you being willing to know. You have to be willing to know yourself. You have to know yourself, but you have to want to take the time to get to know yourself and really know what it is that you want and really putting in the work on yourself. Because like I said, once you start doing that, it just starts to happen naturally. You start to naturally see, okay, yeah, this person's too argumentative. This person is too this person is too that. Because again, once you start to have those questions, once you start to do that work, this becomes your everyday life. This isn't, oh, let me just think like this when it's time to start dating. No, you're thinking like this 24/7. So even co-workers, friendships, just whatever, in every space you start to see, okay, yeah, no, I can't do this, or I'm not willing to do that. I can't be around this person because of this situation and that situation, or what this person, that person got going on. It becomes a part of your every day. You start thinking, you start seeing things with you know what I'm saying, with clarity every single day. There is not it gets to the point to where you don't turn it off. You always observing how people move, how people think, how people talk, and you're always looking to see, okay, is it lining up with what I got going on? Is it lining up with where I'm trying to go? You know what I'm saying? And that's not to say, and that's not to say that you just throw friendships away because they're not, you know what I'm saying? They may think different than you do, or they're not trying to go where you're trying to go. It's not that, but it is to say you understand where your priorities lie. So I may not be able to hang out with you as much because I have to make sure that I'm putting myself around people who are doing what I'm trying to do, who have been where I'm trying to go, who know what to look for in certain things. Yeah, you start to put more time and more investment in that because you know where you're trying to go. You know that in order to get to where you want to be, you have to surround yourself around people who are either there or who've been there and gone even further. Now they're going, but at least have been there and know what it takes to get there. It's so important to have yourself around people who understand you, who understand where you're trying to go. And again, that does not mean that you forget about, your friends from before. You understood what you were trying to do, but it also just means that, you have to create space for the people that you want around you who are going to help put you in those places and in those positions. But that's a part of knowing yourself. That's a part of taking accountability of your surroundings, your environments, the people that you surround yourself with, and understanding that, that energy is going to rub off on you. And so it's so crazy because I heard a guy, I don't know his name, but he was like, you surround yourself with 9 broke people, you're gonna be the 10th. And like when I first heard it, I was like, I just laughed And then when I sat there and I thought about it, I was like, okay, I get what he's saying. You know, you surround yourself around a certain type of people that's who only know one thing. Naturally, you become that. And so you got to be careful about who you surround yourself with. But as you figure yourself out and as you learn more about yourself and as you start to do your work on yourself, you start to realize where you're trying to go and you start to make moves to start heading in those positions. You know, you start moving accordingly to where you're trying, according to where you're trying to go. But it's so important to figure that out because without that, you doing whatever and you hanging out with whoever and it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying that there aren't those people who are going to get to where they need to go and figure themselves out no matter who they're around. I'm not saying that those people don't exist. But what I am saying is that most of us are influenced by our surroundings around, influenced by the people we're around. You know what I'm saying? Most of us may know, hey, I want to do better, but when we surround ourselves around people who don't do better, we eventually start to tell ourselves, well, I ain't got to do better, or I'm doing well enough. And that may be true, but you may want more for yourself, but you hang around people who don't. And again, if you don't have that drive, if you're not laser focused on what you're trying to do and what you want, it's easy to get caught up in the mindset of the people around you who are just like, nah, this good enough. Or I don't think that I'll be that one person who makes it, who blows up, who goes viral. It'll never be me. And then you tell yourself that. And now you believe it. And you know what I'm saying? Now you stuck in that mentality because you stayed around people who were in that mentality. And again, not saying one is better than the other. If you're content and in a place of peace with your life the way it is, you're in a good space and you're happy, that's a beautiful thing. But if you're not, and you know that you're not, and you know that you want more, then you got to be careful about who you surround yourself with because you can absolutely be thankful for where you are and for the things that you have, but at the same time, still want more, still want to get to a better place, still want to get to um, a better job or a better tax bracket, whatever. Though both things can be true, you can absolutely be thankful and appreciative of where you are now, but you can also understand I want more for myself. I desire more for myself. I desire more for my family, for my spouse. I desire more for, you know what I'm saying, for all these things while still appreciating what you have. But it's important to make sure that you're surrounding yourself around with people who understand where you're trying to go, who not just the people who understand where you are, but understand where you're trying to go. Because again, that's just as important. Like is like I said with the dating thing, it's important to know what you like. Is just as important to know what you don't like. It's just as important to say, hey, what are things in your last relationships or ask your last couple relationships that didn't work that you are absolutely just not going to go back to. The moment you see it, it's an instant red flag for you because it's just that bad and it's a deal breaker for you on that type of level. So those things are important. So it's important to know yourself, know what you like, know what you don't like. It's important to have yourself, surround yourself around people who know what, wherever you're trying to go, they know what it looks like. They know what it takes to get there because they're there or they were there at one point in time. Even if they got there and weren't successful in that space and moved on to something else, you can still learn things from people's failures. You can learn just as much from their failures as their successes. So don't don't not take that information just because they may have failed at that. They may be telling you exactly what you need to hear, exactly what you don't need to do when you do get into that space. This is what you don't need to do because this is what I did and this is how it messed me up. So you got to listen to those people who are successful in those spaces and the people who are failed in those spaces because at the end of the day, they made it to those spaces. They got there. They got to where you want to get to. So understand that every piece of information, every piece of experience, all of that adds value to what you're trying to do. Like, again, whether it's a successful experience or if it was a failure, it's still something, it's still information, it's still data that you can input into whatever your plan is for what you're trying to do, because you could probably have a similar plan to that person who failed. And once they let you know, hey, this, I failed and this is why I failed, this is what didn't work for me. Now you can go in and adjust your plan, because y'all could have had very similar plans, maybe even damn near the same plan. And now with getting that experience, now you know there's some things that you may want to adjust to make sure you don't fall into those same pit, you know what I'm saying, those same holes that they fell into, and you can know what to avoid. You know the things that probably won't work, or you start to see holes in your plan because you got more data. Now you have a better picture. Now you know what I'm saying, now you see more of the landscape and what you're dealing with. So all of it is good. Don't just take the successes. If somebody's been where you've been and they failed, that's just as important to hear why, to hear if they could do it all over again, what would they change and why would they change it? What were they looking for? What blindsided them? What weren't they looking for? What should they have been looking for, but just weren't because they didn't know, they didn't have the information. It doesn't matter what it is. If they've been there to whatever that place is, whatever that mountaintop is that you're trying to get to, successful or failure, get that information from them. Surround yourself with those people, because there are things that you can learn from. You can learn so much. It's so important to get as much information and as much data on the places that you're trying to get to as possible before you get there. Get as much information as you can. Don't just go for the successes, go for the failures, go for everybody who's been there. You know what I'm saying? Somebody could be struggling right now in the place that you want to be. And that information that they're holding on to could be so much, that could give you so much value. It's very valuable to you, because you're getting a bird's eye, you're getting a first hand, you know what I'm saying, view of what's going on, what's working, what's not working. You're getting this information in real time. You know what I'm saying? So that's valuable information. But it just all goes back to just knowing yourself and why it's so important to take that time to get to know yourself, know the things that you want, the things that you don't want, the things that you like, the things that you don't like. And I'm telling you from my experience personally, things start to fall into place. You know what I'm saying? People start to fall into place once you start to realize what you want, what you don't want, once you start to adjust how you're moving based off of what you're trying to do. Things and people start to fall into their proper place. You know what I'm saying? People start to feel like, because there are gonna be people who feel like, oh well, you changed up, and it's life. You're supposed to change, or you're supposed to grow. You're supposed to get new information, process that information, and now you go trying to figure out how to make moves. You make your adjustments based off of this new process, based off of this new information that you've just processed. So as I process the new information, I adjust my life accordingly. And yeah, there are going to be some people who feel like, oh, you fake, and oh, you switched up, and whatever they gonna feel. But the truth of the matter is I'm just trying to get to where I need to be. And I would love for you to understand that. I would love for you to get where I'm coming from, because I understand how you feel. You may be feeling left out, or you may be feeling like, man, we spent all the time together, but just understanding that where I'm trying to go now, I can't spend that amount of time with you or doing the things that I used to do, because I understand doing that is just going to get me right back to where I've always been. I have to take time and put it into something else. I have to take my energy and put it into something else if I want something different. And you have your friends who are understanding, you have your people who won't. But I'm telling you, it's naturally going to fall into place. And yeah, there's going to be some tough conversations. You know how we feel about tough conversations on this channel. You have to have them. It's important to have them. It's necessary to have them. You absolutely have to have them, because it's much better to be honest, open and honest with someone about what's going on than to have them thinking, something different, or you're being weird, or your energies, whatever it is. It's just better to just be honest with them about what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, how you're moving, and why you're moving that way. And there will be your friends who understand. There'll be your friends who don't understand. For the ones who don't understand, cool. Like, you know what I'm saying? It sucks. But sometimes you got to do stuff for you, with you in mind, with you have to put yourself first, and understanding that there are going to be people in your life who have a problem with you putting yourself first, who want you to fit into their life. And in order to fit into their life, you have to be willing to put them first. And the moment you put yourself first, you no longer fit into their box, or you no longer fit into what they need you to be. And then, they might show their true colors, and you might start to see how people really feel about you. Like, you're their best friend when it's convenient for them. You're their best friend when they need something from you. But when you start to put yourself first, and you start to be a little selfish with your time and your resources, it's like, okay, you really don't fool with me. Oh, cool. But don't take that as a bad thing. Take that as a good thing. You need to know who your allies are. You need to know who your genuine friends are. You need to know who your fake friends are, who your enemies are. You need to know how to put people in their proper places. And one of the things one of the ways to do that is to know yourself, so that way you know where you're going. That way you know where you need to put your time and your resources, and everything else will start to sort itself out, because people will start to see, okay, he moving like this. And you'll start to see people shift. You'll start to see people who support you, understand, hey, I understand this is important for you. This is understand that this is what you need to do to get to where you want to be. I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you. Keep going, keep pushing. And then you're going to have your people like, oh, bro, you just changed up. You fake. You doing this, you doing that. But that all of that is okay, because all of that puts people into their proper places. But, at the end of the day, just start doing the work on you. Start investing into who you are and what you want to do and who you want to be, and everything else will fall in line. It may take some time. It's not going to happen overnight, but things will start to fall in place as you start to get yourself into places. You start to get yourself into order, and you start to realize your purpose, your plan, the things that you want to do. Everything else, slowly but surely, will start to fall in place. But that's it for today's episode. I want to thank everybody for listening on whatever platforms y'all are listening to the podcast on. And I want to thank everybody for watching on YouTube. Please continue to like, share, subscribe, comment. I appreciate all the love I've been getting. So until the next episode, y'all stay blessed.